Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I think we are recording, so I hope my audio is still good. Right, before we start our discussion for today, just some housekeeping matters first. Number one, I added something that you need to submit on Monday. If you see on the modules, you go to Canvas, you go to the module for week 2, you will see there a consent form. So pakisagutan lang siya. So if you click on it, Canvas for Teachers yung gamit kong app. So hindi ganito exactly makikita nyo, but I think if you click on the consent form, you will have access to a PDF file na makikita nyo dito sa dulo. It says consent and declaration form. Isa lang siyang PDF file that you need to put the date on. Tick the boxes, of course, read the statement, tick the boxes if you agree to it, and then write your name and signature at the end, signifying that you are agreeing to all the statements here. And included in this statement is the academic honesty declaration para kasi nakita ko yung iba sa worksheet, sinusulat nyo manually yung sagot nyo. So after you have submitted this form, you don't need to write the academic honesty declaration for every worksheet. So ito na lang yung blanket statement that I will use all throughout the semester. And some important things here is that you are giving me, you're giving your consent that under generic circumstances, I can post the meeting recordings into appropriate websites or websites that they find appropriate. Para mas mabilis yung access ng iba yung classmates who might not have the Teams account, or para mas accessible, para kahit hindi na kayo member ng group or ma-close down na yung group, you still have access to our class recording. And ako na rin, para whatever happens, I have a third-party website that holds this. I don't think this is a big issue because wala naman tayong sensitive data that is shared using or during our meetings. And then please do this, fill this up before the midnight of September 27th, or in particular, before September 27, 11:59 p.m. So that's on Monday. Please do fill this up kasi this is 5 points bonus to the problem sets. So pag nag-submit kayo, plus 5 na kayo dun sa mga problem sets natin. Okay? But again, I need your consent by Monday, 11:59 p.m. And then the second announcement is that I already posted the first problem for the first problem set. So if you go to the assignments tab, punta tayo sa Canvas, tingnan nyo yung problem set 1.1. Makikita nyo na doon yung first problem, which I guess nakwento ko na sa inyo from last time. Okay. So here, I have the first problem set, number 1. So you need to spot a logical argument in media. So kahit meme, video, or whatnot, just put a link or screenshot it, include it in your submission. Then you need to translate it into symbols and determine whether it is valid or not. Okay. So this problem is worth 10 points. So yung first problem set is worth 50 points. So this is about 20% na to ng problem set 1. So the deadline for problem set 1, that means all problems in the problem set will be due on October 27. So it's still more than a month before the first problem set. But if you can finish it up, then okay na. Mas okay para hindi na kayo matambakan come the week of October 27. So actually, one of your classmates already submitted their problem set 1.1, and I already graded it. So as soon as you can, please accomplish it. Pero if you want to take your time, you still have until the 27th of October at 5 p.m. to submit problem set 1.1. Okay, but for the early birds, it's already here. And then the last announcement is that I think most of you already submitted worksheet number 1. Parang yung mga excuse na lang na students ang hindi pa nakakapagpasa. And most of your lab instructors already graded your worksheet 1. If you want to see if your answers are correct, you can go to the Pages tab. And then I created a page consisting of the answer keys. So meron lang ako dyang statement na pwede nyo lang siyang i-access once you have submitted your worksheet. You don't need to wait for your worksheet or your problem set to be graded. Basta na-submit nyo na and you're eager to see if what you submitted is correct, you can check dito sa answers key page or answer keys page kung available na yung answer key. Nandito na yung worksheet 1 answer key, so you can download it if you already submitted your worksheet 1. And please keep this file to your own personal use only. Do not share it with your classmates. Let your classmates download it from our site para makita nila yung declaration dyan sa taas that they were supposed to access it only after submitting their homework, okay, or their worksheet. So I'll try to upload everything by Wednesday. So the deadline for worksheets usually are on a Monday. Tapos i-upload ko yung corresponding answer key on a Wednesday. Yeah, just to give more time for those who are still finishing their worksheets up para hindi sila matempt. But I'll trust you guys, so answer keys will be available here. And I guess those are all the announcements for now. So unless you have questions or clarifications, I'll switch to the actual lecture. All right, so last time we started our formal Math 101 meetings where we studied how to check whether an argument is valid or not. So we said an argument is just a string of propositions called premises and a conclusion at the tail end. And we want to check if it is valid, that is, if the conclusion follows directly from the premises. Again, we are assuming, for the sake of argument, that all the premises are true, and what we want to evaluate is the validity in terms of the structure of the argument. So inassume natin totoo lahat ng premises at tinitingnan natin yung mga premises ba na yon, assuming they are true, will imply the conclusion. Okay? So the idea there is it's the structure and not actually the content of the argument that we are evaluating. So I think we ended up here when we said that there are arguments like statement number 1 that are valid in form or valid in structure, pero they don't make any sense. And then there are some conclusions coming off an argument that might be true, pero hindi sila nagfa-follow directly from the premises. So statement number 2, even though you might agree with the conclusion that Manila is a crowded city, pero hindi naman siya nagfa-follow dun sa premises, then we say it is an invalid statement. So kung isipin nyo, yung number 1 ay valid even though it doesn't make any sense, pero yung number 2, the conclusion made sense but it is invalid. Okay? And so we will devise another description for arguments that the premises are known to be true, and they are called sound arguments. So for instance, the first statement is a candidate for a sound argument because it is valid. Kaya lang pag tinignan niyo yung first premise, bagsak na kagad. Because it claims that if you have a fish, then automatically it is a mammal. Pero hindi naman lahat ng fish ay mammal, so kaya false yung premise number 1. Okay? So ibig sabihin, hindi na siya pwedeng maging sound, kahit valid siya. However, statement number 2 cannot be sound because it is an invalid argument. Remember, requirement muna yung validity bago natin i-check kung totoo yung premises. And as you might have recalled, last time we did a direct proof of validity, wherein we constructed a truth table, and we have shown that for any truth value assignment to the propositions, we will have true premises implying a true conclusion. Or we prove that the conditional statement obtained by conjuncting all of the premises and considering the conjunction as the antecedent and the conclusion as the consequent is a tautology. Kaya lang, sabi nga ng ibang classmates niyo last time, they observed that that process might be very tedious and cumbersome, lalo na kung napakaraming propositions involved in your argument. That's why hindi siya ganun ka-advisable gamitin, especially for long arguments. Okay? Now we will see another method of proof for validity for an argument later. But before that, let's just see what is definition 15. So definition 15 is an error in reasoning that results in an invalid argument. So siguro sa Math 10, Math 20, or Math 19, nakita nyo na to. So if you have ambiguous premises and you treat them as if they were unambiguous, so fallacy of reasoning siya. If you're assuming what is to be proved, then of course that's a fallacy. You cannot use something that is yet to be proven in order to prove in order to prove a statement, much more to use a statement itself to prove that particular statement. And then number 3 is jumping to a conclusion without adequate ground, which is a usual fallacy kahit sa arguments sa totoong buhay. We sometimes jump to conclusions without the right premises or without the conditions of the premises being satisfied. Number 4 is affirming the consequent or the converse error, and this is illustrated here. So ito yung converse error. If we assume P implies Q and Q happened, it is fallacious to conclude that P happened. Okay. So ang sabi kasi ng premise number 1, pag nangyari si P, ibig sabihin susunod kagad si Q. And nangyari si Q. It is not proper to conclude that P happened. So this is an invalid statement. And again, it is a converse error. Because P can happen even if Q can happen even if P did not happen. What the first premise suggests is pag si P ay nangyari, si Q ay mangyayari. Pero dahil nangyari si Q, hindi automatic na nangyari si P. There might be other causes why Q became true. Okay? Now, actually, if you want to have a proof of invalidity here, pwedeng sabihin nyo, okay, kunwari, true yung premises. Kaya lang hindi magiging tautology yung conditional statement coming from the premises implying the conclusion, because P can be false, right? And then Q could be true. Kung yan yung truth values na i-assign ko to these two propositions. So false implying true, that's true. So no problem about it. Q is true, yan yung inassign kong truth value sa kanya. So true pa lahat ng premises. Pero what is the truth value of the conclusion? The conclusion is false by my truth value assignment. So ibig sabihin, there is a case wherein the two premises are both true, making their conjunction true, pero mag-i-imply ng false statement or false conclusion. And remember, true implying false is false according to the rules ng truth values ng conditional statement. So therefore, there is a case wherein the true premises can imply a false conclusion. So the conditional statement is not a tautology. So that's why it is invalid. Okay? All right. On the other hand, yung panglima dito ay denying the antecedent, called the inverse error. It is of the form P implying Q, but P did not happen. It is still fallacious to conclude that Q did not happen. Kasi premise number 1 guarantees na pag nangyari si P, mangyayari si Q. Pero hindi nangyari si P, it doesn't necessarily follow that Q will not happen. Kasi there might be other causes for Q to happen aside from P happening. Actually, you can write a proof for this by showing that there is a case that the premises are both true, pero false yung conclusion. Okay. Kung gusto kong i-force na false yung conclusion, dapat si Q ay true. Lagay ko dito true si Q. Tapos dapat true yung premise number 2, so dapat false si P para maging true yung negation. Okay? So ibig sabihin, inassign ko si P to be false, so the antecedent here is false. But false implying true is still true, right? Truth value ng conditional statement. So true si premise 1, true si premise 2, pero si conclusion ay false. So we have found one case wherein true premises imply a false conclusion. So therefore, the conditional statement obtained by conjuncting the premises and implying the conclusion will not be a tautology because there is one instant na katulad nito, true implying false, making the conditional false. Okay? So this is again invalid. And these are very prevalent in media or in everyday life. So you might find some actual scenarios wherein people affirm the consequent or deny the antecedent, and you can argue na okay, according to rules of logic, your argument is invalid, and let alone it will not be sound. Okay. Okay. So I hope these are clear. Some clues for your first problem set. Now, going back to proof of validity, the method that we have used last time, which involved the creation of a truth table, is very tedious. So hindi siya magandang gamitin every time. Okay. So we have an alternative method here, which is called the indirect method. So the indirect method for the test of validity means we will try to show that it is impossible to get true implying false or true premises implying a false conclusion. So here we can work backwards. I-assume natin na false yung conclusion. Will there be a way that we can get the premises to still be true? And if we will be able to do that, then we can conclude that the argument is invalid, just as what we did in these two simple examples here. Dahil nakakita tayo ng case na true premises implying false conclusion, ibig sabihin invalid na siya. And this is an indirect proof. Now, if we will be able to show that hindi pwedeng magkaroon ng true implying false, pag sinet ko yung conclusion to be false, and it would be impossible or there will be a contradiction to some statements keeping the premises true, ibig sabihin ay valid yung argument. So kapag ka imposible na magkaroon ng true implying false, ibig sabihin valid yung argument. Okay? I think in page 41, nilista dito yung mga steps on how to show that you have a valid or an invalid argument using the indirect method. So sort of we will be working backwards. And maybe it's easier if I'll show it to you via this example. So create lang ng panibagong page. Oops, ba't hindi ko siya makopy? Okay, there you go. Okay, here we'll use the indirect method. Kasi kung direct method, meron tayong tatlong propositions, P, Q, and R that are involved. So ibig sabihin, magkakaroon tayo ng 2 cube or 8 rows in our truth table. And it might be cumbersome to construct that full truth table. So what we'll do instead is to try an indirect proof. And again, for the indirect proof, we will assume the conclusion to be false. So suppose P implying R is false. Okay? Tapos ipapakita na, i-check natin kung posibleng maging true pa rin yung mga premises. Okay? So if may chance na maging true yung mga premises with the conclusion being false, then invalid siya. Pero pag napakita natin na imposible siyang mangyari kasi magkakaroon ng contradiction, then that means the statement is valid. Okay? So pwede ko siguro ditong itali yung truth values na ina-assign ko sa PQR. Tapos ito yung truth value niya. Okay? So suppose P implying R is false, then necessarily P is true and R is false, because that's the only way that P implying R will be false. So ibig sabihin true si P, false si R. Or baka mas madali pala dito. So dapat false yung implication. So dapat true si P, false si R. So dito true si P, false si R. And then our goal is to check whether it is possible that the premises, which are both conditional, will remain to be true. Okay? Para maging true yung statement number 1, okay, kailangan maging what? Maging true si Q, right? So for premise 1, pwedeng lagyan ko na lang sila ng label star and double star. For star to be true, Q must be true. Tama? Kasi ang tinetest natin, dapat maging true yung mga premises. So Q must be true. So this is true. And then Q is, sabi natin, dapat maging true si Q. Pero here, ano mangyayari sa second premise? We will have true implying false, which is false. So na-violate natin or nagkaroon tayo ng contradiction dito. Okay? So, but this will make, but this will make double star false. So therefore, E implying R cannot be false. Thus, we say that the argument is valid. Or actually, let me correct this. Therefore, the statement cannot be invalid. Kasi hindi tayo makakakuha ng true and true premises implying false conclusion. So perhaps it's better to say, therefore, the argument cannot be invalid. So therefore, we will be forced to accept that the argument is valid. And that's the end of proof. Because we have shown the impossibility of keeping the premises to be true but have a false conclusion. Okay? Tapos parang working backwards yung ginagawa natin. Okay? Does the proof make sense? Questions? React naman kayo guys kung may questions kayo or kung naintindihan nyo. You can use the reaction buttons. Libre naman yan. So, okay, there you go. Thank you guys. So you can use that whenever I'm asking questions. There's a bunch of reactions na pwede nyong gamitin. Okay. And then I hope you can try example 17. Nandito na naman yung proof. So you can try it on your own and check your work. Again, you work backwards. So you assume nyo na false yung conclusion. So you will be forced to assume that Q is false. Q is true. Para maging false yung conclusion. So true si Q, so dapat true ito. So ibig sabihin, kahit ano yung truth value na i-assign nyo kay P, pwede siya maging true, pwede pa rin siya maging false. Wala kayong mabaviolate. Pero yung second premise is not P. So kung siya ay not P, ibig sabihin ay what? Dapat ay, para maging true yung second premise, dapat false si P. Pero that will not create a contradiction. Kasi kung false si P, the first premise becomes false, implying true. That is still true. So there is a truth value assignment that the premises are true, but the conclusion is false. So therefore, this is invalid. Sabi ko sagutan nyo, no? Pero nadulas din ako at nasabi ko rin yung sagot. Pero yeah, for you to try this on your own later. Okay. So that's the indirect proof, and we call it the proof by contradiction or the contradiction rule. Perhaps you can try another one. Let's see. Okay. We can try either 1 or 2. What do you want to try? Though parehas lang naman silang maikli, no? Perhaps I'll try number 1, and then you can try on your own problem 2. Okay. So let's do an indirect proof again. Medyo madali to kasi dalawa lang naman yung propositions. So here, proof, and I'll write an indirect proof here para madali siyang i-review. Alam niyo kung ano yung ginamit ko. So here, I will assume that the conclusion is false thus making P true. And I want to see if it is possible to get true premises still, right? With this assumption. So si Pi true, so true to para maging false yung conclusion. So true ito. So para maging true si premise number 1, let's call it star, let me call it double star. So for the first premise to be true, then Q must be true. Right? That's the only way that we keep the truthfulness of the first premise. Dapat true si Q para maging true to. But this will make the second premise false. Kasi true daw si Q. So dapat yung negation niya ay maging false. So it is impossible to have, sabihin ko na lang kasi mahaba, pero you have to write it down on your notes. It is impossible to have true premises but a false conclusion. So therefore, we are forced to accept that the argument is valid. Okay, because it is impossible to have true premises implying false conclusion. And actually, we have a name for this reasoning or this argument. This is the rule of modus tollens, which we will see later. Okay. And I guess you can try problem number 2 on your own. Similar proof. This is not that hard. Okay. So iwan ko na yan sa inyo. And here, page 42 is just a summary of what we have done so far. So we have 2 methods on how to prove that a certain argument is valid. So you do a direct method, which is using a truth table, or number 2, an indirect method, showing whether it is possible or not to get true premises implying a false conclusion. Okay? So maybe we can leave it there. Any questions? So ito yung gumagamit tayo ng truth tables para ma-prove yung validity or invalidity ng isang argument. Okay? Now, if there are no questions, then I'll go to the formal proof of validity. The formal proof of validity is similar to what you did in high school geometry, wherein you have a 2-column proof. You have your statements on one side, and on the other, you have the reason for those statements. So ngayon, gagamitin na natin yung mga existing valid arguments and existing rules of equivalencies to prove the validity of arguments. So hindi na natin kailangan gumawa ng truth tables. Kasi ngayon, ipoprove na natin siya using established facts or arguments before. Some of these you have seen in Math 20 or AMAT 19. And yung iba rin nandun yata sa review chapter where you have the rules of equivalencies. So like, ano ba yung mga rules of equivalencies? You have, I forgot their names. Material implication, ano pa ba yun nandun? I forgot all of them. Pero yun, yung mga kasama ng material implication, come on, I forgot their proper names. But hopefully I'll remember them later when I need to call them. Pero additional to those rules of equivalencies, we have here some valid arguments. And one of them is what we have proven earlier, the rule of modus tollens. So if within our proof, we have encountered P implying Q, and we also encountered not Q, then we can conclude not P using those 2 premises. So kung kolekta tayo ng mga premises, pwede nating magamit yung conclusion ng mga arguments na ito. Okay? Then probably let's go each of these one by one. Is this the first time you're seeing these rules or nakita niyo na rin siya sa lower courses? Say it might be too much to remember them if this is the first time that you see them. So let's try to familiarize ourselves with this. Una is the rule of modus ponens. Okay, it says if P implies Q and P happen, then Q will necessarily follow. Okay, so ang tawag sa kanya modus ponens, abbreviated MP. I usually find it easier to make sense of what these mathematical statements mean para medyo matandaan ko siya ng mas mabilis. Halimbawa, Yung unang premise, pag nangyari si P, mangyayari daw si Q. Pero nalaman ko na nangyari si P. So, assuming that the first premise is true, then dapat magpa-follow si Q. So this is modus ponens. The second argument is modus tollens, or MT. Now it says P implying Q, but Q did not happen, then it is valid to conclude that P did not happen. Okay? So parang pag daw nangyari si P, dapat mangyayari si Q. Pero hindi nangyari si Q. So dapat hindi rin nangyari si P. Kasi kung nangyari si P, dapat mangyari si Q, which is not the case according to the second premise. Okay? So actually, this is what we have proven. This is the last thing we prove, right? Yung kaninang valid statement mula dun sa exercise 19. So that's modus tollens. Now, hypothetical syllogism is like transitivity of the implication operator. So premise number one implies if P happens, then Q will happen. Premise number two, if Q happens, then R will happen. Then it is safe to conclude that P will imply the occurrence of R. Kasi ibig sabihin dito, pag si P daw ay nangyari, mangyayari si Q. Pero pag nangyari si Q, mangyayari si R. So ibig sabihin, pag nangyari si P, automatic na mangyayari si R. Okay? Hypothetical syllogism. Number four, disjunctive syllogism. Now, as the name implies, this will involve a disjunction. So you have your first premise is an OR statement. So it's P or Q. But not Q happened. So ibig sabihin, hindi nangyari si P, but we need to keep the truthfulness of the first premise. So ibig sabihin, Q must be true. Para at least isa sa mga disjuncts dito ay naging true. Okay? Now, there is an equivalent or another form for the disjunctive syllogism. Pwede rin namang P or Q, not Q, then it is valid to conclude P happened. Okay? Gumamit lang ako dito ng commutativity, which is rule of equivalence. Commutativity of the disjunction. Okay? So we can do this for the disjunctive connector, right? Para sa disjunction. Number 5 is constructive dilemma. Ito yung medyo siguro pinakamahirap tandaan among these rules, along with the destructive dilemma. So in the constructive dilemma, premise number 1, nag-stop ba yung screen ko, guys? Let me restart. Pero nandito pa naman ako sa meeting, no? Tama ba? Nawala lang yung... Okay, thank you, Lauren. Nawala lang yata yung screen share ko. Okay. I hope I'm back now. Okay. Yeah, I was talking about the constructive dilemma. Sa constructive dilemma, dapat merong kang conjunction ng dalawang conditional statements. Okay? One is P implying Q, the other one is R implying S. And then second premise is P or R. Now, if you have P or R, then it is valid to conclude that Q or S happened, or Q or S is true. Ano siya madaling tandaan? So, pag si P daw ay nangyari, mangyayari si Q. And I know that if R happened, then S will follow. Tapos alam ko na nangyari si P o kaya si R. So, ibig sabihin, at least isa dito sa dalawang to ay nangyari. Kasi nangyari yung at least isa dun sa dalawang antecedents. So, dapat at least isa dun sa dalawang consequence ay magpa-follow. And that's why my conclusion here is Q or S. Because I don't know which between P or R occurred. So, ibig sabihin, hindi rin ako sure kung ano yung mangyayari, si Q ba or si S. So, the safe thing to conclude is at most a disjunction, Q or S. Okay? So, parang ano siya, parang isa siyang application ng modus ponens. Okay? Yung number 6 naman, parang siya yung ka-counterpart niya using modus tollens. We have the similar nawala na naman yata yung screen ko. Okay. I hate when this happens. So lahat tayo ay biktima ng unstable internet connection. So I think my laptop is connected to our home Wi-Fi. Lipat ko siya mamaya sa mobile tether ko pag nagloko-loko pa siya. Okay. But anyway, destructive dilemma. So same, oh, come on. Hold on guys. Ayaw niya talaga mag-work. Okay. Now, destructive dilemma. So, same premise, P implying Q and R implying S. But the second premise is that either not Q or not S. So, hindi nangyari si Q, hindi nangyari si S. So, at most I am sure that P did not happen or R did not happen. Kasi alam ko at least dun sa dalawang consequence ay hindi nangyari. So, ibig sabihin at least isa dun sa dalawang antecedents ay hindi nangyari. Okay? Number 7 is easier. It is simplification. If you have P and Q, pero di ba kapag conjunction, laging true parehas. So I can conclude P right away. Or there's another version which you can derive from this rule through commutativity of a conjunction. So yung P and Q, pwede rin siyang mag-conclude ng Q. Kasi alam ko sa conjunction, parehas yung true parehas ng conjuncts. So ibig sabihin, pwede ko rin kunin si Q to be true. Number 8 is conjunction. If you know P is true, and if we assume that Q is also true, then it is safe to put them inside a conjunction. True naman sila parehas, so pwede ko silang i-end. And this will still be true. Okay? And then the last one is addition. So if I know P to be true, then I can put it with an or with any statement, whether true or not. So dahil true na kagad si P, ibig sabihin true na kagad yung conjunction, even if the second disjunct is true or false. So ang tawag sa kanya ay addition. Okay? So you can use these rules of inference together with the rules of equivalence that you have seen in the earlier version, in the earlier pages of the Vortex, to do a formal proof for validity of statements. Okay, and we have some illustration here. Okay, you can start with illustration 20 here. Okay, so these are your this is the argument that we want to prove the validity of, and we are required to use a formal proof. So it's a 2-column proof. The first column would be for your statements. The second column would be for the reasons why you were able to conclude those statements or to write those statements. So, laging unang mga lines sa statements column ay yung mga premises. So, first statement, copying ko lang siya, meron na akong line number 1. And the reason, it's a premise. Second line will be the second premise, reason premise. And then, ang gusto ko mapakita ay si C. I want to derive C from those two premises using rules of equivalencies or rules of inference. Okay? So, kung i-analyze nyo, kunwari hindi ko pa alam yung wala pa dyan yung proof. I-analyze ko ngayon. Gusto ko makuha si C. Paano ako makakakuha ng C? Well, makakakuha ko ng C mula sa first premise. Yun lang naman yung pwede kong pagkuhanan. Okay? Pero paano mangyayari si C? Well, para mangyari si C, kailangan mangyari si A o kaya si B para makonclude ko si C. Okay? Pero I need this disjunction, but where can I get it? If you go to the second premise, oh, meron akong A. Luckily, naka-end. So, pwede akong gumamit ng simplification. Kasi pag naka-end, pwede kong kunin alin man sa dalawang conjuncts. Kunin ko si A. Pero ang requirement dito is A or B. Pero luckily, may rule of addition. Alam ko na totoo si A. So it doesn't matter what statement I put it with A, but using the connective or, true pa rin yun palagi. So that's called the addition rule. So pag nag-addition ako, makukuha ko yung A or B, and then I can appeal to modus ponens para makuha ko si C. Okay, so that's the game plan. Now let's try to formalize it into a two-column proof statement. Okay, yeah, I think ganun yung ginawa rin ng proof. So, kinailangan niya ng A. So the third line is obtained by line 2 using simplification. Okay, may end ka na dyan. So A, yung naging conclusion. Tapos, remember, yung premise number 1, A or B yung kailangan antecedent. But or is easy to get. Kailangan ko lang mag-addition. So look at statement 4. So I can add a proposition B to A without affecting the truth value. Kahit ano pa man yung truth value ni B. So the reason, line 3, by addition. And then now I have A or B. Look at premise number 1. A or B yung antecedent. I know this to be true, so C must follow directly by the rule of modus ponens. Okay. So kaya niya nakuha si C. So here in the reason column, I need to write 1, dun siya nanggaling, and 4, that's the second premise by modus ponens or NP. Okay, does the proof make sense? Okay naman, I hope it is. Let's try another one. Gawin siguro natin itong sa exercise. Kasi we are almost time. So, iwan ko na yung illustration 22 kasi nandito naman yung proof sa work text. Okay? Add page ko lang. Oops, sumobra yung page. Pero okay, here we go. Let's prove this. Okay. Of course, yung formal proof natin, statement, reason. Okay. Na ng unang mga statements ay yung assumptions or yung premises. Reason, put premise. Line number 2 is not T and not U. So I'll have here a premise. And we want to get not S. Yan yung goal natin, makarating sa not S. Pero if you look at the premises, isa lang naman yung nag-i-involve dyan ng S, which is premise number 1. Pero siya ay conditional. Pero paano ko makukuha si not S? If you remember the rules, nakukuha ko yung negation ng antecedent kung magiging false yung consequent. And that rule is called modus tollens. So if I get a not T, then I will get a not S. Pero how do I get a not T? Well, look at premise number 2. It's a conjunction. It's a conjunction, and I know I can do simplification sa mga conjunctions. So here I can conclude not T coming from line 2 by simplification. Okay. And then for number 4, I have a not T. That's the negation of the consequent. And I know that I will be able to conclude the negation of the antecedent. And the reason, lines 1 and 3, modus tollens. And we are done. Kasi nakuha na natin yung conclusion ng argument. So conclusion here is that the argument is valid. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, please try please try illustration 22 on your own. Nandito na naman yung proof in case you get stuck or lost. So pwede nyo siyang tingnan dyan. Now, I want to end with an example of a conditional proof. So the conditional proof is still a formal proof, pero this will work for arguments wherein the conclusion is a conditional statement. So kung ganito yung itsura ng argument nyo, premises, and premises, and premises, and so on, pero yung conclusion nyo ay conditional statement. Well, in a conditional proof, or yung conditional proof, it just say na pwede mong kunin yung antecedent ng conclusion as one of the premises. And you can do that in your proof by, or the reason is conditional proof. So pag gumawa na kayong formal proof, yung second column, lalagay nyo lang conditional proof. Pag binarrow nyo yung antecedent ng conclusion as one of the premises. And let me see, there's an example here. I'll leave example 23 to you guys, so try nyo siyang gawin on your own. I'll do example 24, kasi siya yung walang sagot dito. Oops. Wala na pala akong space, add page na naman, or pwede dito na sa taas. Okay. So the proof can go like this. Proof, line number 1 is A implying B, and this is a premise. Number 2 is A or C, that's another premise. 3C implying not D, another premise. And then look at the conclusion. The conclusion is a conditional statement. Conditional proof tells me I can borrow that antecedent as one of the premises. So lagay ko na siya kaagad D. And this is conditional proof, or CP. Okay. And then the goal is to get the consequent. So we want to show that B is true. Okay, so yun yung goal. Mapakita na yung consequent ay totoo after we assume the antecedent. Okay, so let's see. Let's analyze. I want to get a B. Pero paano ko siya makukuha? Nag-appear lang si B dito. So dapat si A mangyari para makuha ko si B via modus ponens, right? But how do I get an A? Well, I can get an A mula sa second premise. But in order for me to be sure that A happened, I should have C to be false para pwede ako mag-disjunctive syllogism. Okay. Now, paano ko mahanap si C ay false? Si C nag-appear lang dun sa, or the only other appearance of C is in the third premise. Okay. Pero, not antecedent siya dito. So, para makuha ko yung negation ng antecedent, kailangan kong magkaroon ng negation ng conclusion. But luckily, I have that in here. Okay. So, yun yung game plan. And let's just formalize that argument. So I can have, I can have line number 5. I will have a not C by using premise 3 and premise 4. And that would be, the reason would be modus tollens. Okay, so here you will have 3 and 4 modus tollens. Okay. And then since I have a not C, but I also have an A or C, alam ko na false ito. Alam ko true to. So false si C. So dapat si A maging true. So that means line 6, A. By lines 2 and 5, disjunctive syllogism. Okay. And then I know A, but look at premise number 1. A implies B. We have A. So B is the conclusion. Reason 1 and 6, modus ponens. And we're done. Because we have shown the consequent of our conditional conclusion. Okay? Right. Is it clear? Any questions? Sorry, medyo overtime na ako. Ayan. May warning na si Teams 5 minutes before the scheduled meeting time. Okay, any questions? Or okay pa naman siya so far? Parang ang bagal kong mag-discuss, no? Parang kukunti pa lang yung nasasabi ko, time na kagad. Is the pace okay for you or masyado siyang mabagal? Or no comment kayo? Wala namang minus pag nag-disagree sa akin, no? So, yeah. So, okay. Thank you. Now, the thing about conditional proof is that you can use it repetitively. Let me just look at that example. Okay. Look at illustration 26. So sa illustration 26, premise 1, premise 2, pero yung conclusion is a double implication. Conditional siya, pero yung consequent ay conditional din. So, pwede mo itong gamitan ng conditional proof more than once. What do I mean? So, this will be premise number 1, premise number 2. So, dun sa proof, pwede nyo gawin ito yung number 1, line number 2, premise, premise. Okay? And then you can borrow the antecedent of the conclusion. Remember, yun yung conditional proof. So, my line 3 could be A by conditional proof. Okay. And then that will leave us the task of showing B implying D. So parang na-reduce natin yung conclusion to B implying D. Pero the current conclusion that we want to get is another conditional statement. So therefore, I can use conditional proof once more. And by that, I mean I can borrow the antecedent as one of the premises. Okay? So kaya pwedeng yung line number 4 ng proof ay B. And the reason, conditional proof. And then now what's left to be done is to show that D is true. So we want to show that D is true. Okay? And that is what was done in here. Okay? Ito yung sinulat natin kanina. And then a bunch of modus ponens argument led to having the conclusion D. So you can, I hope you can read this proof on your own. Try some of the other exercises that we skipped, okay? And then what you'll do on the Monday lab sessions, I will ask your instructors to discuss the principle of reductio ad absurdum, okay? Which is a proof by contradiction. So similar siya dun sa ginawa nating indirect proof kanina. But there is an additional line that you need to add to your proof. Sayang kasi pinapractice ko pa naman kanina how to pronounce reductio ad absurdum in a Harry Potter style. Para kasi siyang isang spell out of the Harry Potter books. Pero anyway, so you'll do it in the lab sessions on Monday. So if you can, please attend the lab sessions. Your lab instructors will discuss the rest of the material from the study guide for week number 2. And that will help, hopefully, that will help you answer the rest of worksheet number 2. And I guess minove ko yata yung deadline ng worksheet 2. Tingnan ko nga sa Canvas. Kasi hindi ko natapos this week. So I ought to give you additional time to finish worksheet 2. Let me see if I extended the deadline already. Okay. So worksheet 2 is due on September 28. Kailan yung 28? Tuesday. Tuesday ko lang pala siya in-extend. But I'll make it to a Wednesday para to give you some more time to finish it. Pero I don't remember what worksheet 2 is about. Pero hindi ko alam kung na-announce ko na rin sa inyo, I edited the worksheet number 2 kasi may typo or hindi clear yung ibang parts niya. So specifically, do you guys see my screen, updated screen? Nababasa ko na ngayon yung worksheet 2, yung laman ng worksheet 2. In my laptop's monitor ay na-stuck siya dun sa problem set 1.1. But yeah, you can download the edited worksheet number 2. Kasi parang dun sa original version ay hindi siya naka-vertical format. So medyo magulo yung pagkaka-space ng mga premises. So here I just edited the premises so that each line represents a premise. So if that caused confusion, my apologies. So kindly just download the updated worksheet number 2. Okay. And again, I'll extend the deadline of worksheet 2 until Wednesday. The Wednesday is the 30th. Sorry. Sige, gawin ko ng September 30, Thursday. So, but if you can, just try to finish it as soon as possible. Okay. All right. Any questions before we leave? Saktong 6:30. But I'm sorry again for being over the time today. Any questions? Wala naman. Okay, so if there are no questions, then that's it for us today. So enjoy the rest of the night. Enjoy your weekend. Take some rest. And let's see each other again on Wednesday. Bye, everyone.
Thank you po, sir.